Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I have a really cool stamp today to show you, and I'm going to make two cards with it. This is the Slimline Candles stamp from Technique Junkies, and I'm going to be using the Young at Heart, which is a grouping of snarky sentiments. There are 10 different stamps in that Young at Heart stamp set. I'm going to be using two, which are snarky. So my plan is to make two cards that are not slimline. Previously, I did create a card with this stamp that is a slimline card. I have a video on that. I can link it below. So I'm going to go ahead and put my stamp inside my stamp positioning tool, and I'm going to use my anti-static tool from Rabbit Hole Design to put a little bit of powder down on this card panel that I have. I don't want there to be any marks or anything that I don't want to be heat embossed. So putting down a little bit of powder helps that. It helps get rid of the static. And I'm going to be using some Versamark ink, inking up this stamp and stamping a section of it onto my A2 card panel. So my card panel is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Oh, wait a minute. My card panel is 4 by 5. I already trimmed it down to the size that I needed. All right, so I'm just going to get some gold embossing powder. This is Nouveau gold embossing powder. I put it in a different container because I find that they're really small Nouveau embossing powder containers. I have a hard time getting the embossing powder back in them, especially some of those other ones that are smaller than that even. So I bought these little containers that I'd have extra so I could store my embossing powder in that. I'm going to go ahead and get my heat gun and heat this up. I'm going to melt the embossing powder. I'm going to have some really cool looking gold candles when I'm done. You could do this on a different colored paper. You wouldn't even need to color them then if they were on a different colored paper. So maybe you had like a blue or a pink paper. My plan, though, is to color them, but I thought, well, let's go ahead and make another one, and this time we will have the card positioned in the portrait landscape instead of the horizontal landscape. I'm going to go ahead and put some of that powder down using my Rabbit Hole Designs anti-static powder tool. I'm cleaning my stamp off so that when I position it on this card panel, it's clean and there's no Versamark ink residual on it. By the way, with Technique Junkies, I have a coupon code that you can use to save 10% off your order, and that is TJ10 Tracy. I'll have it in the description box below. All right, so now that I have my stamp positioned in the right place, I'm going to go over it one more time with the anti-static tool, and I'm going to use Versamark ink again. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to emboss it with gold embossing powder. I stamped it in the middle of the page. I didn't know if I was going to die cut it out. I just gave myself a little bit of extra space. Now for this one, I stamped it in the middle of the page because my plan is to put a sentiment above and a sentiment below. The sentiments that I'm using are from the Young at Heart stamp set, and the sentiments are snarky. So there are 5 different sets, or 10 total sentiments in the Young at Heart stamp set, and I'm going to read them to you. Oh, by the way, I'm using dual brush markers. I have a couple different sets. I have Memento markers. I have some markers from Michaels that are called the Crafter's Loft. And then I have some from Amazon that are called Dual Art. But basically these are just watercolor markers, and they work pretty well with this embossing technique. It doesn't seem to affect the nib of the marker by me doing this. Okay, so the Inside Out Young at Heart set of 10. Here are the sentiments. Young at heart, slightly older in other places. So technically you can stamp on the outside young at heart, and on the inside slightly older in other places. This is for the outside, you're the man, and then on the inside, an old man but still the man. Well, you could also stamp these both on the outside if you choose. Outside, happy birthday. Inside, thank you for always being older than me. Outside, age is just a number. Inside, in your case, a really high one. And those are the two that we're going to be using today. But instead of stamping one on the outside and one on the inside, I'm going to stamp the sentiment at the top above the candles, and then another one below the candles. And the final set of sentiments in that stamp set, called Young at Heart from Technique Junkies, is you're not old, you're 25 plus shipping and handling. And in case you're not familiar, Technique Junkies has a lot of really cool, snarky sentiments that you can choose from. A lot of fun, punny type sentiments. Some are just, outright snarky, and they're great. And they're fun, and usually most people love getting them. Oh, my strategy here was to just color these candles the color of a rainbow. And it worked out pretty well, I think. I like how it looks. So back to the snarky sentiments. Anytime you need something like that, go to Technique Junkies. They have a great selection, and you can save 10% with my discount code on your stamps that you purchase. Okay, as I finish this, I'm going to go ahead and skip forward because it is exactly the same steps that I took above with the other card, just coloring in these candles. Now that I have both of these panels colored, I'm going to position the sentiments so that I'm getting them in the right alignment. I'm going to use a piece of acetate to cover up the panel and do a mock-up stamping of where the stamp will be, but I don't want to get any ink on my paper yet, so I'll go ahead and use a piece of acetate to cover that up. Now the next thing I'll do is use VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink to stamp my sentiment. This is a black pigment ink, and I'm going to use clear embossing powder with this. I like using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink for my sentiments because it's very nice and bold, and then using clear embossing powder over top of it allows just the ink color to shine through, and it does a really nice effect for embossing. So let's go ahead and emboss the sentiment. Age is just a number, in your case a really high one. After I got done with that, I did the same thing for the other panel. So I've got two panels that have candles and the sentiment. Everything is embossed. Sentiment is embossed with clear embossing powder because I used VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then the candles are embossed with gold embossing powder, and then I colored in those candles. And I basically did the same thing for each card. I just did a matte layer in gold foil in the candles that were die cut down to a square. I made it into a 5x5 square card. Okay, so here are my finished cards. I want to say thank you very much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below letting me know which card you like the best. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe and hit the bell so that you're notified of all my future videos. Again, thanks so much for watching. Have a hopeful day. Bye-bye.